My mom's affair pushed my dad to attempt suicide, so I refused to attend my mom's wedding after she abandoned our family. Her fiancé revealed her secret affair and financial theft. Hi everyone, I'm Ethan, 28M, and I need some advice about a complicated family situation. Let me give you some background on how this all started. I grew up in a household with my dad, Jack, 55M, my mom, Sarah, 53F, and my younger sister, Emma, 25F. From the outside, we probably looked like your average family, but behind closed doors, things were far from perfect. Dad was always the easygoing type. He loved his job as a high school art teacher and spent most of his free time painting or sketching. He had a calm demeanor and rarely raised his voice, even when things got tense at home. Mom, on the other hand, was a high-powered executive at a marketing firm. She was always busy, always stressed, and always pushing us to be better. As far back as I can remember, there was this underlying tension between my parents. Dad was content with his life, happy to spend weekends at home working on his art projects. Mom, however, was always looking for the next big thing. She wanted a bigger house, fancier cars, more exotic vacations. She saw Dad's contentment as a lack of ambition. I remember one particular incident when I was about 12. Dad had just finished a beautiful landscape painting, and he was so proud of it. He showed it to Mom, hoping for some praise or encouragement. Instead, she just rolled her eyes and said, "If you put half as much effort into your career as you do into these silly paintings, maybe we could afford that beach house I've been wanting." Dad's face fell, and I saw him retreat into himself. It was a pattern that repeated itself over and over throughout my childhood. Mom would criticize, Dad would withdraw, and Emma and I would be caught in the middle. As we got older, the tension only grew. Mom's career took off, and she became even more focused on success and status. Dad, meanwhile, seemed to shrink more and more into the background. He started having trouble sleeping, and there were days when he barely left his studio. Things came to a head when I was 18 and about to leave for college. Mom had been pushing me to apply to Ivy League schools, but I had my heart set on a smaller liberal arts college with a great art program. When I told her my decision, she exploded. She accused me of throwing away my future, of being lazy just like my father. She said I was wasting my potential and that I'd end up a failure. Dad tried to intervene, to calm her down, but she turned on him too. She called him a disappointment, said he had held her back all these years. It was brutal to witness. That night, I overheard them arguing in their bedroom. Mom was saying she couldn't do this anymore, that she was done living with someone who had no ambition. Dad was pleading with her, saying he'd try harder, that he'd look for a better-paying job. But Mom had made up her mind. The next morning, she announced she was moving out. She had already found an apartment closer to her office. Emma and I were shocked, but Dad just looked defeated, like he'd been expecting this for years. The next few months were a whirlwind. Mom moved out, and suddenly our house felt empty and quiet. Dad tried to keep things normal for Emma and me, but we could see how much he was struggling. He lost weight, barely slept, and spent most of his time alone in his studio. I went off to college that fall, feeling guilty about leaving Dad and Emma behind. I tried to call home often, but conversations were always strained. Mom rarely picked up when I called her new place, and when she did, she always seemed distracted. Then, during my sophomore year, I got the call that changed everything. It was Emma, her voice shaky and panicked. Dad had attempted suicide. He had taken an overdose of sleeping pills, but Emma had found him in time and called an ambulance. I rushed home, my mind reeling. How had things gotten this bad? Why hadn't I seen the signs? When I arrived at the hospital, Dad was stable but still unconscious. Emma was a wreck, blaming herself for not noticing how depressed he had become. And Mom? She showed up at the hospital, looking perfectly put together in her designer suit. She spoke to the doctors, made some calls, and then left, saying she had an important meeting she couldn't miss. I was stunned by her coldness. Over the next few weeks, as Dad recovered, I learned more about what had been going on. Emma told me that Mom had been seeing someone new, a colleague from work. She had introduced him to Emma, expecting her to be happy about it. But Emma was furious, feeling like Mom was trying to replace our family. Dad was released from the hospital, and I took a leave of absence from college to help take care of him. He was fragile, both physically and emotionally. He started seeing a therapist, which seemed to help, but recovery was slow. As for Mom, she seemed determined to move on with her life as if nothing had happened. She invited Emma and me to dinner to meet her new boyfriend, acting like it was the most normal thing in the world. I declined, but Emma went, if only to give Mom a piece of her mind. Now, months later, I'm still trying to navigate this new family dynamic. Dad is doing better, but he's not the same person he was before. Emma is angry all the time, especially at Mom. And Mom? She's planning her wedding to her new boyfriend, seemingly oblivious to the pain she's caused. I feel torn. Part of me wants to confront Mom, to make her see the damage she's done. Another part just wants to cut her out of my life entirely. But she's still my mom, and despite everything, a small part of me still loves her. I don't know what to do. How do I support Dad and Emma while dealing with my own feelings? How do I handle Mom's apparent lack of remorse? Any advice would be appreciated. Update 1. Hey everyone, thanks for all your supportive comments and advice on my last post. A lot has happened since then, and I wanted to give you all an update. First off, I want to address something many of you pointed out, that I shouldn't let my mom off the hook just because she's family. You were right, and your comments gave me the courage to stand up to her. About a week after my last post, Mom called me out of the blue. She wanted to know if I'd be attending her wedding, which was coming up in a month. I took a deep breath and told her no, I wouldn't be there. She sounded shocked and asked why not. That's when I let it all out. I told her how hurt and angry I was about how she treated Dad, how she'd abandoned us when we needed her most, and how her actions had nearly cost Dad his life. I told her I couldn't celebrate her new relationship when it was built on the ruins of our family. Mom didn't take it well. She accused me of being dramatic and ungrateful. She said I didn't understand adult relationships and that one day I'd see she had done the right thing by leaving Dad. When I brought up Dad's suicide attempt, she brushed it off, saying he had always been weak and that it wasn't her responsibility to manage his mental health. I was stunned by her callousness. It was like talking to a stranger, not the woman who had raised me. I ended the call feeling drained but also relieved. For the first time, I had stood up to her and spoken my truth. After that conversation, I threw myself into helping Dad and Emma. Dad was making progress in his recovery, but he still had a long way to go. I helped him set up an online store to sell his artwork, which gave him a sense of purpose and a way to supplement his teacher's salary. Emma, meanwhile, was struggling with her own issues. She was in her final year of college, but was having trouble focusing on her studies. She confided in me that she was thinking of dropping out. We had a long talk about it, and I encouraged her to stick it out if she could, but assured her we'd support her no matter what. Then, about 2 weeks ago, something unexpected happened. I was at Dad's house, helping him photograph some of his paintings for the online store, when the doorbell rang. To our shock, it was Mom's fiancé, Robert, 57M. He looked uncomfortable and asked if he could come in to talk. Dad hesitated but eventually agreed. Robert sat down in the living room and started speaking. He said he had come without Mom's knowledge because he felt we deserved to know the truth. According to Robert, his relationship with Mom had started before she left Dad. They had been having an affair for over a year before the separation. He said he had encouraged Mom to be honest with us from the beginning, but she had insisted on keeping it a secret. Robert also revealed something that made my blood boil. Apparently, Mom had been siphoning money from their joint accounts for months before leaving Dad. She had set up a separate account to funnel money into, preparing for her new life with Robert. This explained why Dad had struggled so much financially after the separation. I was furious. Not just at Mom, but at Robert too. I asked him why he was telling us this now, just weeks before their wedding. He said he had been wrestling with his conscience and couldn't go through with the marriage without clearing the air. Dad remained silent throughout Robert's confession, his face a mask of pain and betrayal. When Robert finished speaking and looked to us for a response, Dad simply stood up and walked out of the room. I heard the door to his studio slam shut. I told Robert he needed to leave. As he was walking out, he turned and said he was calling off the wedding. He couldn't marry someone who could be so deceitful and cruel to her own family. After he left, I went to check on Dad. I found him in his studio, staring blankly at an unfinished painting. I sat with him in silence for a long time, neither of us knowing what to say. The next day, I called Emma and filled her in on what had happened. She was shocked but also relieved in a way. She said it confirmed what she had suspected all along about Mom's character. We're still processing this new information. Dad is understandably hurt and angry, but he's also relieved to know that his financial struggles weren't entirely his fault. Emma is throwing herself into her studies with renewed determination, saying she wants to prove to herself and to Mom that she's stronger than Mom ever gave her credit for. As for me, I'm trying to figure out what to do next. Part of me wants to confront Mom with what we've learned, but another part wonders if it's even worth it. She's shown so little remorse for her actions, I'm not sure the truth would make any difference to her. For now, I'm focusing on being there for Dad and Emma. We're talking about possibly taking legal action to recover the money Mom took, but we haven't made any decisions yet. I'll keep you all updated as things develop. Thanks again for all your support and advice. It's been a huge help during this difficult time. Update 2. Hey everyone, I'm back with another update on the situation with my family. Things have taken some unexpected turns since my last post. First off, I want to thank everyone who offered advice about potentially taking legal action against Mom for the money she took from Dad. We decided to consult with a lawyer, and it turns out we do have a case. The lawyer advised us that we could potentially recover a significant portion of the funds Mom had siphoned off. We're still deciding whether to pursue this, weighing the potential financial benefit against the emotional cost of a prolonged legal battle. Now, on to the more dramatic developments. About a week after my last update, Mom showed up unannounced at Dad's house. Emma and I were both there, helping Dad reorganize his studio. When we opened the door and saw Mom standing there, we were all stunned into silence. Mom looked different. Her usually immaculate appearance was disheveled, and she seemed to have lost weight. She asked if she could come in to talk. After a moment's hesitation, Dad nodded and let her in. We all sat in the living room, the tension palpable. Mom started by saying that Robert had called off their engagement and left her. She said she had nowhere else to go and asked if she could stay with Dad for a while. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything she had done, she had the audacity to ask Dad for help? I was about to say something, but Dad spoke up first. In a calm voice, he told Mom that he was sorry she was going through a difficult time, but that she couldn't stay with him. He said too much had happened, and having her there would be detrimental to his mental health. Mom's face crumpled, and she started to cry. She turned to Emma and me, pleading with us to understand, to help her. But Emma, who had been quiet until then, suddenly exploded. She told Mom exactly what she thought of her actions, her affair, her theft, and her treatment of our family. It was like years of pent-up anger and hurt came pouring out. I had never seen Emma so fierce, and I felt a surge of pride for my little sister. When she finished, Mom looked shell-shocked. She turned to me, perhaps hoping for a more sympathetic response. But I simply shook my head and told her that she had made her choices, and now she had to live with the consequences. Mom left in tears, and we didn't hear from her for several days. Then, yesterday, we received some surprising news. Dad's old friend from college, Michael, 54M, called to let us know that Mom had reached out to him for a place to stay. Michael, who knew about the situation, had agreed to let her stay in his guest house temporarily, but he wanted to make sure we were aware of the arrangement. I was grateful for Michael's consideration in letting us know. It was a relief to know that Mom had a place to stay, if only because it meant she was less to show up at Dad's doorstep again. This whole situation has made me reflect on the nature of consequences and forgiveness. Mom is facing the repercussions of her actions, and part of me feels she deserves what's happening to her. But another part recognizes that she's still human, still capable of suffering. Dad, Emma, and I had a long talk about how to move forward. We agreed that while we're not ready to forgive Mom or welcome her back into our lives, we also don't wish her ill. We decided that we would maintain clear boundaries with her, but we wouldn't actively try to make her life more difficult. As for our family, we're focusing on healing and moving forward. Dad has started teaching art classes at a local community center, which seems to be boosting his confidence. Emma has decided to stay in school and is even considering grad school now. And I've been thinking about my own future, possibly going back to finish my degree. It's been a long and difficult journey, but I feel like we're finally starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. We're not the same family we were before all this happened, but maybe we're becoming a stronger one. I'll keep you all posted if anything significant happens. Thanks again for all your support and advice throughout this ordeal. Update 3. Hello everyone, it's been a while since my last update, and a lot has changed. I wanted to share the latest developments with you all. First, some good news. Dad has been doing really well lately. His art classes at the community center have become quite popular, and he's even been commissioned to paint a mural for the local library. It's wonderful to see him passionate about his art again and regaining his confidence. Emma graduated college last month, and we all attended her ceremony. It was a proud moment for our family, especially considering how close she came to dropping out. She's now applying to grad schools and seems excited about her future. As for me, I've decided to go back to college to finish my degree. I'm enrolling in online classes so I can continue to be close to Dad and Emma while studying. It feels good to be working towards my own goals again. Now, about Mom. We hadn't heard much from her since she moved into Michael's guest house, but that changed about 2 weeks ago. Michael called Dad to let him know that Mom had left suddenly, leaving only a note, thanking him for his hospitality. We had no idea where she had gone. A few days later, we received a letter from Mom. In it, she explained that she had decided to move to another state for a fresh start. She wrote that she had realized how much damage she had caused our family and that she felt her presence was a constant reminder of the pain she had inflicted. The letter included a check for a substantial amount of money, apparently everything she had left from her savings and the sale of her car. She wrote that it was an attempt to repay what she had taken from Dad, though she acknowledged it could never make up for her actions. Mom also wrote individual paragraphs to each of us. To Dad, she apologized for her years of criticism and for the affair. To Emma, she expressed regret for not being the supportive mother she should have been. And to me, she apologized for trying to force her ambitions onto me and for not respecting my choices. The letter ended with Mom saying she wouldn't contact us again unless we reached out to her first. She said she wanted to give us the space to heal without her interference. We were all pretty stunned by the letter. It was the first time Mom had shown real remorse for her actions. We had a family meeting to discuss how to respond. After a long talk, we decided to accept the money as partial repayment, but we're not ready to re-establish contact with Mom yet. We all need more time to process our feelings and continue our healing. Dad suggested donating a portion of the money to a mental health charity, which we all agreed was a good idea. The rest will go towards paying off some of Dad's medical bills from his hospitalization. It's strange to think about Mom starting a new life somewhere else. Part of me hopes she finds whatever she's looking for, but another part is still angry and hurt. I guess healing isn't a straightforward process. We're taking things one day at a time. Dad is considering using some of the money to rent a small art gallery space to showcase his work. Emma is planning a trip to visit some potential grad schools. And I'm excited to start my online classes next month. I've learned a lot through this whole experience. About family, forgiveness, and the importance of standing up for yourself and your loved ones. It hasn't been easy, but I feel like we're all coming out stronger on the other side. Thank you all for your support and advice throughout this journey. Your words have been a source of strength and guidance when I needed it most. I may not update again for a while, but know that your kindness has made a real difference in my life and the lives of my family.